Jack, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming back for this month's chat. I'm particularly excited about this month because you literally wrote the book on the topic. Today, we're going to talk about processes and systems over talent and feel. And the context of today is really that a lot of companies are doing their planning for 2023. But there's a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs that are saying that they struggle to achieve fast growth while maintaining profitability and consistency. And I know that you are a particular expert when it comes to leveraging systems and processes so that we can grow sales fast, but also profitably and consistently. So great to see you, and thank you for joining me.
And happy holidays. In case you didn't get the clue. So I'm in a festive mood here and will be for the remainder of the month. Yesterday, I had an unbelievably great visit with my little granddaughters that are 1 and 3 years old. And there's nothing better than little kids to put you in a really great mood during the month of December. So let's fire away.
Well, I was just going to say, I might have to get the contact information for your tailor, because I'm feeling very unfestive compared to you. Well, Jack, as I said, today is all about systems and processes. And you've famously said on a number of occasions that sports teams are run better than most businesses. Remind us why that is and how that relates to sales teams.
Yeah, so Morné, I go all over the world. I speak to numbers of different size audiences, and that line comes out every single time. Sports teams are run better than most businesses, and it doesn't matter what sport you pick, or it doesn't matter what level it is either. There are 3 things, as I see it, that really cut the difference between the majority of businesses and sports teams. Number 1, there isn't a coach in any sport at any level that would consider putting the players on the field without a playbook, without the proven systems and processes that will enable that team to win more than they lose. And so why wouldn't a sales force have a playbook? You know, in my background, my largest sales force was 2,600 salespeople. And I would visit any one of those 100 plus offices that they worked out of and give the same speech. There aren't 2,600 best ways to sell this stuff. What do you say we figure out the best way, build the systems and processes, and then we'll beat the pants off of the competition? There's only so many things that go on a sales call. Why not be better prepared before you get there? So that would be a documentation of best practices in what we call a sales playbook. The second differential of the 3 is sports teams practice. They don't just practice, they practice. When I wrote the book, The Sales Playbook for Hyper Sales Growth, with Dan Larson, I read 5 books written by high performance sports coaches. And throughout the book, to validate the concepts that I was teaching in the book, I put direct quotes from these coaches that applied. And they were saying it's like the day of celebration on game day, because it's easier on game day than any of the other times. They practice harder than they do in the game. And the game becomes celebratory. And as you know, I've done Ironmans all over the world, and 140.6 mile effort. But I can tell you, I wouldn't be able to do an Ironman without at least 6 months of intensive practice. In fact, that practice, I averaged about 25 hours a week of practice. Well, by the time the race day came, again, a day of celebration, even though it required massive effort. And then the third differential between sports teams and business is they have an active coach. They don't just have a coach. They've got somebody in the trenches, body to body with them, in the players, and making sure that they're perfecting what it is they're doing in practice of what we documented in the playbook. Those are the 3 differentials.
Okay. I completely buy that, but let me be devil's advocate just for the moment. You mentioned that, sports teams are run better than most businesses, but a lot of sporting franchises spend millions of dollars on scouting, attracting, and securing the best talent. So why can't a sales organization just go out, do a fantastic job of attracting the best salespeople, exceptional salespeople, A players, and then just let them loose and do their thing?
I'm not sure that I'm even going to be able to answer this because it's so obvious to me.
Right.
Think about pro sports and the amount of money that these superstar players get paid. What the coach gets paid is infinitesimal compared to what that legendary sports player is paid. So obviously they've got the goods. And incidentally, we're talking about people that sometimes are teenagers, but at worst case in their 20s, that are being written $100 million contracts to play that sport. But go and pick the sport you want. If you want to pick golf, well, one of the namesakes of golf is Tiger Woods. Now, when Tiger Woods came on the scene, his first year as a pro, if I recall right, he wins the Masters, and I think he won it by 12 strokes. And so I think back and I go, did he have a coach? And, he won 15 of the majors. One of them in an older age than the rest of them. And that was back at the Masters. And did he have a coach then? And you would look at me and go, of course he has a coach. In fact, we even know the names of his coaches along the way. And so Butch Harmon was one of those coaches. And he was critical to the success that Tiger enjoyed. Well, I switch to sports and I go to Tom Brady. Go greatest of all time. He moves from the Patriots down to the Buccaneers and wins the Super Bowl. And I'm thinking, wow, this guy is the greatest of all time. He's playing quarterback for pro football in his 40s. But does he have a coach? And by the way, does he practice? Oh my God, his legendary practice. I go to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant in basketball. I go to Martina Navratilova. I go to Serena Williams in tennis. And every single one of these people talks about how important it is to have a coach and to practice and to follow the playbook. It's proven systems and processes. So there's no departure in the sporting world. But I can tell you in the business world, Morné, there is a departure because we get salespeople that are the top of their pack and they're almost offended when you say, well, let's practice or let's follow the playbook. It's like, well, I've got my own style and all the rest of that. Nobody would get away with that in professional sports. And why should we get away with it in sales? Couldn't we all get better? No matter how good we are, that's where I come from. And so if I have a company that invests in building a playbook and invest time to practice and invest a coach in helping me get better, that's a very attractive thing to me as a top performer who wants to even get better. And I'm sitting here today at 73 years old. I will have read 100 books this year in the interest of getting better in everything that I do. Why? Why would I not? Why would you push back? That's where I come from. So I know that you set me up with these questions, okay? But you are the guy. Your company is building these playbooks for years. I mean, you and I ran into each other about 5 years ago when I spoke in the UK, and you were based in London. And then when you came up to me and said, hey, by the way, this whole thing that you're talking about, that's what my company does. Well, when you build that playbook for companies, is that like well, my job is done, problem solved, or, is it the magic elixir, or what happens when we got the playbook? Hey, here's the playbook. What happens then?
It's a great question, Jack. It's interesting to see the mindset of the types of companies that come to us and ask us to help them build a playbook. I think one of the saddest things actually happened to me recently. I was visiting an existing client of ours. They've been working with us for about 2 years. They've had fantastic growth. They're doing really well. They've got an A-player sales team. They've been struggling with sales management, however. They haven't quite gotten that right yet. We built what I consider to be a killer playbook for them. I was visiting the office, and one of the senior salespersons walked past, and I called her and I said, "Hey, it's great to see you. How's it going?" She goes, "Oh, no, it's going well. There's a few things that we're working out." I said, "How's the playbook holding up?" And she kind of went quiet and went, "We haven't really used it in a few months." And I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but when you guys finished building it, we were all really excited, and then we used it for a few weeks, but then, we haven't been able to find like a full-time sales manager yet. And as a result, we've all kind of gotten busy with selling, and we're not really using it at the moment." So unfortunately, the short answer to your question is, once you've built the playbook, no, it's not problem solved. Because as you know, a playbook is a dynamic thing. It's supposed to be changed and updated, and you're supposed to drag in the feedback that you get from live prospects. You're supposed to get your superstars to feed into it, specifically the ones that are consistently performing, because that's what's working. I'll never forget the story you told me about the client in Western Pennsylvania that took 400 of their salespeople to Cancun, and they have a president's club. And out of the 7 years that they ran that competition, 11 salespeople were in the president's club every single year. And I remember you turning to the president and saying, "What's the 11 doing that's made them hit the president's club every year?" That should be in the playbook. That should be what's codified. What we're seeing often is that companies are in pain, and they recognize that getting a playbook is going to help them get out of pain. But the mentality is it's a thing, it's a product. It's I'm gonna build this thing, and once it's done, then I'm saved. But it becomes a physical document or a file on a server, and it isn't baked into the culture of what they do. And so much of the time, the playbook is a box that was ticked, an investment that was made. But it breaks my heart to see the return on investment not realized because it's not being coached. You and I spoke to a company in Dallas about a year ago, and I remember that young man building a sales team of 30 salespeople under 30, 4 full-time sales managers, coaching a playbook every single day. You showed me the playbook, and I remember saying to you, "Jack, this has got to be in the top 2 percentile of any playbook I've ever seen." But the key was that the sales managers were coaching that playbook every day. And that young man took that company from a blank sheet of paper to $74 million in 3 years because that playbook was being coached every day. So no, building a playbook is not job done. It's step one.
Hey, Morné, great example. I've got one more for you. I was brought in with a continuing client for many years, and they asked me to speak once again at their national sales conference in New Orleans. They brought their salespeople in from all around the U.S., 300 salespeople, and they had used me so often that I was sort of running out of material, right? So I asked for the top 10 salespeople to get out from the audience up on stage, and I started to interview them. And I asked the same question of all 10 to start the thing off, and that was, how many years have you had in the industry, and how many years have you been with this company? I didn't know the answers that were going to be forthcoming. And I had other questions I wanted to ask, but it stunned me. Three of the 10 had no industry experience till they came with the company, and this was their first year. And they were in the top 10 of 300 salespeople, and I'm saying, how can that be? And all three of them started laughing, and they said, I feel like I cheat when I come here. They gave me this playbook and said, just do what's in the playbook. Now, remember, there were 300 people in there, some with 15 years and more experience in the industry and the company, who had never been in the top 10 because they got their own style, right? So, we could give you example after example of companies that are like the one you started with, built the playbook but not putting it into play.
Absolutely. I mean, you were just holding up the book that you and Dan wrote a moment ago, and I know that that's the accompanying book to hyper sales growth. And oftentimes when I speak to somebody and they say, look, I need a playbook, but I kind of want to research it myself. And I say, great, buy Jack's book. Now, as you've written the book, and building a sales playbook for some people feels like it's a really big thing. And as a result, they get anxiety. They don't start because they go, I don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth. I wouldn't even know where to start. Let's make it simple for the people that are watching this video. If you had to pick, say, the top 5 things that somebody could start today, really simply start today, what would you say would be the 5 first things that they should put into a playbook?
Well, I'm going to answer that, but I'm going to give you a 6th before I give you the 5. And
Sounds
the
good.
6th one would be read the book. And I'm not trying to sell a book, but what I can tell you is all of the templates that you need are in a free app that goes with the book that you can download and then customize to your own particular needs and company. Now, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And so if you took the book, you could then identify maybe there's 20 sections. Well, then maybe what you do is you build 1 section a week. So if I were to go with your question, give me 5 things I ought to start with. Well, how about if you just did 1 of these each week? In 5 weeks, you'd have a pretty dynamic sales playbook covering a good bit of the most important things. So the first thing I would start with would be HPAs, high payoff activities. Identify what are the most important things for salespeople to be investing their time on. And by the way, my definition of a salesperson is way easier than most that sit in HR. Win new customers, grow the ones you got. What are the activities that are necessary for you to win new customers and grow the ones you have? Those are called HPAs, high payoff activities. So in the playbook, identify what they are and the frequency under which you should be doing them. Secondly, goal setting. You can't get to your destination if you don't know what it is. And so when I think about my annual goals, I mean, as you know, I'm sitting now building my goals for next year, and I'm pretty much through the process. And when I think about all the things I want to accomplish, then I break them down into what I need to do by quarter and by month and by week. And so I start the first week of 2023, and I already know I'm off to the races, and I can see the ultimate, the end zone, the goal. So goal setting would be the next item. The next is personality styles. You know, if you sell to everybody the same as your style, you run the risk of a mismatch, a conflict in personality with 75% of your public. Because 75% of the public was born and raised differently than you. And so if people do business with people they like, and if they don't like you because of personality conflict, you can have the best product, price, and service and still not walk out with a deal. So in the playbook, how to identify personality styles and how do I mirror them in the process? My next section of the playbook would be this. We hear about it all the time, objections. Well, there aren't many really out there. Maybe pick the top 10 that our salespeople really encounter out there. And then what are the best responses to those objections? Put them in the playbook so then we can practice those objections and go in with an air of confidence. And then the last of 5, because that's what you asked me, would be proactive pipeline management, identifying the prospects, identifying our customers, identifying our clients, and what we're going to do to move them from prospects and customers to customers into clients. And if we were to identify the process, I'm going to review you, Morné, as a salesperson every week, your pipeline. You're guaranteed to sell more because things that get measured get done, and inspect what you expect. So that's it. Now, you again are the guy who's building these playbooks with your team, and you're doing that with people all over the world. So there's my guts, but what are you experiencing with your clients that undertake this in terms of mistakes, pitfalls, shortcomings, besides finishing it and not using it?
Sure.
How about during the process, making the pasta? What's going on there?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there's certainly a number of pitfalls that we see. So I'll just pick out a few. Some that we've seen over the course of this year, which a few of them have really boggled the mind. We recently started working with a company, and I said to him, great, who's going to be the playbook champion? He said, oh, it's going to be the HR manager. I said, fantastic. Who's the HR manager going to work with? What do you mean? I said, what do you mean? What do I mean? Who is the HR manager going to work? No disrespect to the HR manager, but what does the HR manager know about best practices, HBAs, critical numbers, sales collateral, sales tools, best questions, objection? Like, what does the HR manager know about that firsthand? Oh, well, we just thought we'd give it to HR because it seems like it's an HR thing. That's definitely not a place to start. Then I had a company that said, you know what, our sales manager, sales leader, salespeople are really busy right now, so we're going to hire in somebody to build the playbook. Right. And what does this brand new person that spends zero time in your organization actually know about what happens in your sales process? No, not much, but they're going to ask. Said, but you just told me that everybody's really busy. How is a brand new person going to have the gravitas, the credibility, the purchase to get the rest of the team to tell them what they should be putting in the playbook? Or there might be something completely the opposite. It might be contribution and management by committee. So we work with companies where they say, we want all of our salespeople on all of the calls all of the time. Well, that also doesn't work because now you've got 10, 20, 30 people all on the same call. Some are interested, some are not. With respect, the bottom quartile, I don't want to hear from them. Because if they were any good, they wouldn't be in the bottom quartile. They're only responsible for about 6% of your sales. I want to hear from the top quartile who's responsible for 60% of the sales. So they either have too few cooks or too many cooks. Or we have CEOs that come to us and say, as I said before, I want you to build me a sales playbook, but once I write you the check, I'm done. So I'm abdicating my responsibility to your team. I don't want to hear from you until you're finished. And I said, well, hold on a second, Mr. Client. The reason you hired us was because you said that all of the good stuff is in your head. And one of your top frustrations is that your sales team can't sell like you. How exactly are we going to coach the sales team to sell like you if you're abdicating for the responsibility and you're not making yourself available so that we can pull all that good stuff out of you and codify it into a playbook so that your sales managers can coach it? And then two more things. The final two is to do with, again, the implementation, but that's getting practical. How about we take what we put in the playbook and we bake it into your customer relationship management software? How about we map out that sales process in the CRM so that it becomes more than just a glorified contact manager? So that when I open up that record, you just mentioned before about the personality styles, I've got the personality profile in my CRM. I understand what questions I should be asking, and I can follow the bouncing ball all the way through that process so that all of my salespeople are behaving consistently. And the final pitfall that we see so often is we have companies that come to us and say, You've convinced me. I've read Jack's book. I saw you speak about it on stage. I'm a believer. I want a sales playbook. And I want it to look like this, and this. And then when I say to them, explain to me how far or how close your current sales culture is to this playbook that you're describing. And they go, oh, no, the playbook is completely aspirational. It has no relation to how we sell today. And I said, well, that's something that we need to address. Because if the playbook says we are going to be hunting for 2 hours every single day, and you have 0 hunters in your team that spend 0 time hunting today, if your culture is in conflict with the playbook that you're building, that's going to be a very, very heavy lift. So those are some of the main pitfalls that we see.
Yeah, so let me, with all the journey that we just made on this system and process, I don't want to frighten people from this thing. So a good attorney will never ask a question that they don't know the answer to already. I'm about to violate that, but I've never been an attorney. That story you told about the young business owner in Texas that was completely in on the playbook. How big was the playbook? How?
I don't think it was more than 12 pages, 10 or 12 pages. It wasn't big at all.
Beautiful. There we go. I have an expression that I use with my clients when they feel like what they just heard from us is going to be some overwhelming thing. Here it is. Thin to win. Thin to win. You drop a 100-page sales playbook on salespeople, and they're headed for the exits. Now, you could evolve into getting it thicker along the way, but I'd rather go with, and my clients that are doing this really successfully have really diced it down into something that is not so overwhelming to embrace. Yeah.
No, I love that. And what I like what you said before is pick 5 topics, do 1 a week. And at the end of those 5 weeks, you will not believe what you've actually achieved. And then what we've learned is your playbook can be simple. It can be, 8, 10, 12 pages maximum. Each page is the topic. The secret sauce is in practice, practice, practice. Do that role practice that we talked about in one of our previous sessions where you have prospect, salesperson, observer, and just do your 15 minutes of practice a couple of times a week. Take the learnings from that, put it back in the playbook, and companies will not believe how their sales will exponentially grow while maintaining that all-important bottom line.
I'm reminded of the legendary basketball coach at the university level at UCLA, John Wooden, who won more national championships than any other coach in college basketball history. His first practice session with every team each year was take your shoes and sneakers off. I'm going to show you how to properly put on your socks and tie your shoes. Because if we practice the basics and we do that to a science, the scoreboard will take care of itself. That's exactly what you just said there.
I love that. And I think that's a great note for us to finish on, Jack. And I'm hoping that the people that have heard us and listened to us today will take this to heart, look at 2023 and say, you know what? There is some low-hanging fruit that I can grab today. I don't have to wait. There's a few more weeks until Christmas. There's a few weeks in January. By the middle of January, I can have a functional playbook that is going to take my sales to the next level in 2023. That's how easy it is. But you've got to start, you've got to be consistent, and you've just got to bake it into everything that you do. So thank you so much for the positivity. Thank you for your insights. I appreciate you. And happy holidays. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you again in January after the new year.
Sounds great. And thanks for inviting me. I love being on the program with you. So happy holidays to you and to everyone that's on the program.
Excellent. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
See ya.